you, Mayor, for being here.
Thank you.
First, let me thank you for investing into the bulletproof windows for our NYPD patrol vehicles. I think that is a wise investment and something, unfortunately, in this day and age that is needed. Additionally, let me say I share your concern about the senior centers and potential loss of funding with the shifting that the governor's looking to do with the Title 20 funding that perhaps would take what's discretionary right now to the city and move it to a mandate for something else, which would be, in this case, childcare, which could also be a worthy cause. But again, we don't want to be taking money away from our senior citizens, so I want to say that I agree with you on that, and I share your voice in saying to the governor to please leave the Title 20 funding alone. However, there's one area where you and I seem to have a disagreement on, and that is with what has been transpiring over the last week, the potential for New York City to be losing billions of dollars in federal funding if they do not comply with federal law. And for the city, this could potentially mean $7 billion. Now, as you're aware, the federal government only issues detainer requests for individuals who are here illegally under certain circumstances. It is limited. It's not just a blanket if someone is here illegally or if they merely commit a traffic violation, as you have said in some news shows over the weekend. It's strictly for individuals who pose a threat to public safety or have previously been convicted. Under Local Law 58 and 59, which you signed into law in 2014, the city no longer complies necessarily with detainer requests in certain circumstances. In fact, over a 2-year period from October 1st, 2014 to September 30th, 2016, the city only complied with 32 out of 584. And as I mentioned, the federal government only issues those requests in certain circumstances. Someone poses a threat to the public or has previously had a conviction. My issue is, why would the mayor of the city of New York, who is entrusted to protect the safety of our citizenry, say that they're not going to comply with these detainer requests when they're only in certain circumstances? So for instance, if an individual is here, conducts sexual misconduct, forcible touching, sexual abuse in the 2nd or 3rd degree, grand larceny, welfare fraud, identity theft, and this is just a small list of a much larger list in which the city refuses to comply with detainer requests from the federal government. Why would you protect individuals who are here illegally committing these crimes instead of putting your citizenry first and foremost and ensuring that we receive the federal funding we need for our law enforcement to do their job?
Assembly member, I know you are a true believer in your ideology, and I am in mine, and we have very different facts we're working from, so we're just going to have to disagree, I think, on even the premise of the question, in my opinion, but let me go piece by piece real quick. There are 170 offenses that are, as a matter of New York City law, when any of those offenses is committed, we cooperate with ICE.
I agree with you on that. There are 170, but there's many more that are not included.
Well, but again, I respectfully think that I've seen this attempt to confuse the meaning of what we're doing. If there are some offenses that we should add, we are willing to do that always. But I would say anyone in good conscience who reads that list of 170 offenses, which is essentially any act of violence, anything involving a weapon, anything involving terror, any major drug offenses, it's quite comprehensive, understands the intent is to protect the safety of all New Yorkers. And we will cooperate fully with ICE, and we have cooperated fully with ICE. I would disagree with you, and again, and I'm willing to add offenses if when you come up with a list of 170 offenses, if there were several more that should be included, I'm perfectly happy to include them. But on the point about how ICE makes its requests, I think it is unfair to say that every one of their requests, even previously, let alone under a new administration, would track that same notion of serious and violent crime. We have no such guarantee. So we are concerned that any offense, and the examples I've given, low-level marijuana possession, for example, could, in the eyes of ICE, be considered for deportation. The problem is we have 500,000 people in our city, number of whom are parents of children or breadwinners for their families. Now, I would argue on a humane and moral level, and I can certainly say that Cardinal Dolan has spoken out in the same vein, and many other faith leaders, but I also will tell you on a practical level, from the point of view of taxpayers, is it right to deport someone who did a very minor offense, leave a family without a breadwinner, leave children without their parents? Is that good public policy? No. So, final point, on the $7 billion, respectfully, by the decision of or the evaluation of our corporation counsel, Zach Carter, former U.S. attorney, that is not a figure that we see any scenario for dealing with. The only, according to the Supreme Court decision in 2012 written by Justice Roberts, the current Chief Justice, any attempt to cut funding must conform to a specific funding stream. In the executive order, it mentions only two agencies, Justice, Homeland Security. The grand total of their funding to New York City is between $150 and $200 million. And that means if they went ahead with that, we believe we can defeat it in court on many levels. But let's say it were to happen, then the federal government make a decision to take away anti-terror funding from New York City. I believe they're going to think twice before doing that beyond all the questions of legality. So talk to Commissioner O'Neill, talk to police chiefs all around the country. They will tell you that maintaining the working relationship between immigrant communities and police is foundational to public safety, that the minute this type of detainer situation gets to be much more extensive and based on much more minor offenses, it will shut down the willingness of undocumented folks to speak to police officers for fear of deportation. It will make us all less safe. That's the belief structure we're working from.
Well, I think that we can be compassionate and at the same time look at protecting our citizens, and I think there is an issue here because when violent and serious crimes, that's the only case in which, what the city defines violent and serious crime, that's the only case in which the city will comply. But there's a whole slew of other crimes, and you asked for suggestions, so sexual misconduct, forcible touching, sex abuse, the second and
Your
third degree,
microphone's off.
grand larceny, welfare fraud, and identity theft, all crimes that currently an individual can commit, and the city will refuse to comply with a detainer request. I think that's something we need to look at and make sure our priorities are focused on ensuring that in public safety and making sure that we're complying with the federal law so we get the $7 billion because we can't afford to lose that.
Again, just really quickly, as somebody member, I think those are two separate concepts. I think we believe that the executive order on its face is contradictory and attempts to do things beyond that which the Supreme Court has allowed. And we're going to challenge it if there's an effort to even take away funding. Until that time, it's abstract, but we will challenge it in court, and I know a number of other cities and states will as well. The last time we had a scenario like that, it was President Obama's executive action on immigration, which you remember was challenged in court by states and ultimately defeated. So we remind people of that history. But I would caution, you list in good faith a number of offenses you believe are not included. I would like our lawyers to talk to you to show you how we constructed the 170 offenses, because I think they do overlap with some of the categories you've talked about. I think there are some, and you mentioned that I believe are not on our list and deserve full consideration, and we'll work quickly on that. I think there are others, because if you look on all sorts of areas of sexual abuse, for example, they're clearly delineated a number of offenses. I believe we are addressing those issues, but I will certainly want a dialogue to see if there's areas we should add.
I appreciate first, sexual abuse in the first degree is included on your list, but second and third degree are not. So I appreciate you, and I will continue the dialogue.
Thank you.